Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today, let's talk about May lures for fishing off the bank. I still love beating the bank, and there's a lot of things that are going on this time of year that you can do and be very, very successful. I recently I did a video about shad spawn fishing and also fishing around the bluegill spawn. Those are two patterns that you can utilize up shallow and catch a lot of fish. But during May, for most of the country, especially down here in the South, May is essentially a post-spawn month. So this is the month that most of the fish are starting to leave the shallows and start going out to their main lake haunts. And usually that's on the Tennessee River. That means ledges and current-based type structure. And once those fish start getting out there, fishing can be really good. And of course, nowadays, everybody's fishing offshore. Everybody's got Panoptix Live Scope. They know what's going on out there. And so it is kind of hard to differentiate yourself. And it seems like the trend is going from more reaction baits out deep to more slow-moving, more methodical techniques, which I think is just a function of more and more pressure out there on these deeper fish. But I've got three different baits that in recent years, especially on Lake Chickamauga, these have been really, really key players for me on the ledges. And one of them is a reaction bait. But it's a true reaction bait. It's a bait that you're moving really, really fast, oftentimes to get that reaction strike. And that one is a crankbait, okay? Deep diving crankbait like this isn't like an extra deep diving crankbait because you got like the 6XDs, the 8XDs, the 10XDs, and I'm just saying Strike King because that's the hard baits that I throw. I'm not sponsored by Strike King or anything like that, but I just love their crankbaits. They're very proven. And anyways, so this right here is the 5XD. I love the 5XD this time of year because in May, a lot of the best spots aren't necessarily like super deep. They're in that like 12-foot range. 12 to 14 foot ledges in May can be killer. And a lot of times you need a bait that they're not necessarily, feeding at that moment, or they're highly pressured, but you need a bait that just bombs right through them and moves very quickly. So I like to use a crankbait like this to do that. And of course, you definitely want to trade out your treble hooks for very sharp treble hooks. I use the TBL 930s, and usually for my 5XD fishing, I'm going to be using like the 7.3 heavy action composite series rod, and 10 or 12 pound test usually is the size that I like because you are grinding into a lot of rock and shell and stuff like that. So I use 12 pound test fluorocarbon. Usually I'm using Invisex for that, and then a 6.6 to 1 gear ratio reel, something in that 6 range. I use the VLD 10, but crankbait is one that I reach for first to see if I can get fish quickly with reaction baits. But then I start slowing down a little bit and start throwing other baits like this right here. This is a bait that I've caught a lot of fish on and made a lot of money on this time of year. And it is a Z-Man not turbo fatties, but mag fatties. And this is a 7-inch worm. It's a little bit wider body worm. It's loaded with salt. And I'm not necessarily saying that you have to throw the mag fatties. I love the mag fatties because it just has the perfect subtle action, and to me it gets bigger bites. But you can use, other straight tail worms. You can use ribbon tail worms this time of year. May is usually when the bigger worms tend to start playing a large role. And there's two ways that I rig these. I'm either going to be rigging it on a very large shaky head. Secret Lures makes one called the Lead Shaker, which is really, really good. It's a little hard to screw an Elastec bait like this one into a screw lock jig head, but you can do it. In fact, I've got one rigged up right now. You just have to put a lot of pressure and twist, and just keep on twisting until finally it starts sinking into that Elastec plastic. And then I add just a little bit of super glue where the Elastec meets the head, just to kind of secure it even more. But you can do it. I've had a lot of people comment and say you can't do it, but the Secret Lures one actually has kind of a looser coiled keeper, which makes it a lot easier for you to screw into with Elastec. But mag fatties and other similar big worms, really good for, and you also, I forgot to mention, a Texas rig, just a traditional Texas rig with like a 1/4 ounce weight, really good for fishing around stumps or fishing around brush piles, things like that. But if I'm fishing cleaner bottom, I want that lead shaker because it makes that bait stick straight up. And I think it has a lot of action. So, but yeah, so the bigger worm, really good for just slowing down, but still kind of catering to those larger bites. But you know, oftentimes I've seen in recent years that they still don't want that larger profile sometimes. So I have to like downsize to something different. And here on the TVA, it seems like the last few years, and I think it's because live scope is putting so much pressure offshore, the drop shot really has been playing the biggest role in both numbers and size. And so fishing a drop shot with a worm like this is the long shots from Z-Man. This is the Twilight color. You know, with other brands, they've got a color called Morning Dawn, and that is very similar to Twilight. Twilight is a really good one, and this is what I like to throw a lot on my drop shots. But you know, other brands make similar colors like that Morning Dawn, and that seems to be the color for most of these lakes. When you're fishing offshore and you're not getting bites and you're seeing fish on the graph, reach for a Morning Dawn or Twilight colored worm and go to work, because that color, for some reason, I don't know what it is, just catches a lot of fish. Another range of colors, you know, more purple hued colors also work very well. And occasionally, you know, there's some lakes that green pumpkin, just a good old green pumpkin worm, will work wonders. But drop shotted with a, you know, 1/4 ounce weight, I'm impatient, so you're not going to be seeing me out there with a 1/8 ounce weight with a drop shot. I like a 1/4 ounce weight because I can get it down to the bottom. Even in the wind and the current, I can maintain bottom contact and I just drag it. I really don't shake this a drop shot that much out here, out deep. I'm just dragging it, and occasionally, you know, if I feel like I'm pulling up to a stump or like a rock or something that the weight kind of sticks on, I might just shake it just a little bit. But man, there's not a whole lot of baits that will outperform a drop shot with one of these little pink worms like the Twilight out here on the ledges or really anywhere around the country. It's amazing how good this color is. Thing I like about the long shots is, of course, it's made of Elastec. It has better action, and also it lasts a lot longer. If you can keep it on the hook and you don't have the bait slip off of the hook, you're gonna be able to use one bait almost pretty much all day long. But yeah, so anyways, guys, those are just some suggestions. There's a bunch of different baits at this time of year I like to throw, but when I start getting off the bank and start finding fish on these ledges and offshore areas, these are 3 baits I've always got tied on. And you know, believe me, I've been resisting the drop shot for years, but it is absolutely one of the biggest performers out here on these offshore spots. So anyways, guys, thank you for watching. Make sure you check out the affiliate links to get 10% off your order and also help support the channel. Make sure you ask any questions in the comment section, and I'm going to see you guys out on the water. Make sure you trust the process, and yeah, let's get on the lake and catch some fish.